Our top story this morning, Montana Governor Steve Bullock says he'll never deploy National Guard troops, quote, based simply on the whim of the president's morning Twitter habit, end quote. Bullock, a Democrat, said in a statement yesterday that the responsibility of sending Guard soldiers anywhere is one of the most difficult things he faces. Trump signed a memorandum on Wednesday that would allow the use of National Guard troops to help fight illegal immigration and drug trafficking on the U.S.-Mexico border. That morning, the president wrote in a tweet that the nation's border laws are weak and, quote, we will be taking strong action today, end quote. Bullock administration officials say the request for troops would have to come directly from the governor of a border state, and Montana has received no such requests as of yesterday. And speaking of Governor Bullock, a debate over private prisons in Montana came to a head this week after Governor Bullock announced the end of negotiations with CoreCivic, which runs a private prison in Shelby. CoreCivic was hoping to extend its lease and delay the date the state can choose to buy out the prison. Montana Speaker of the House Austin Knutson says the governor is making an ideological rather than an economical decision.
There's no question. I mean, the governor in his office, and frankly the governor's base, the hard left fringe of the Democrat Party, they hate private prisons. Why that is, I couldn't tell you. It's an ideological thing, and I'm not sure why a state-run prison is somehow more holy. As a legislator, I have to look at the dollars and cents in this thing. I mean, we have to make this thing balance out with the state budget.
Although the current negotiations may be over, Knutson predicts this will continue to be a big political issue.
What we can do is not appropriate money to purchase that prison. And I can tell you that is exactly what will happen next session. There's still going to be Republican majorities in both the House and the Senate. I don't think there's any reasonable chance of that changing. And I can tell you there's not going to be any appetite from a Republican House or Senate caucus to purchase another prison, especially when we get a better bang for our buck having it run privately.
The state has been storing up funds to buy the prison for over a decade. It currently has accrued over $35 billion, which would go back to the state to deal with budget issues if a deal were made. Knutson said the state-run prison at Deer Lodge costs around $120 per prisoner per day, significantly more than the $75.50 rate that CoreCivic was asking for in the negotiations. Knutson ridiculed the governor's math on the issue, calling the numbers, quote, massaged, end quote, and, quote, garbage, end quote. The brewing trade war between China and the U.S. arrives at an inopportune time for Montana ranchers seeking to close a multi-year deal to export up to $200 million of beef through Chinese e-commerce giant JD.com. Miles City rancher and Montana Stock Growers Association Vice President Fred Wacker said yesterday a contract needs to be finalized by the end of June to have cattle ready for delivery in 2018. He says final negotiations with JD.com are just getting started and hopes the trade dispute doesn't upend a deal. Chinese regulators on Wednesday included beef among U.S. products targeted for a potential 25% increase in import duty. The move came hours after the administration of President Trump unveiled plans to impose tariffs on $50 billion in Chinese imports. An Arctic front that began moving through northwest Montana yesterday afternoon led the National Weather Service to issue a warning to anglers on Flathead Lake. Here's meteorologist Dave Noble.
We're actually expecting some really strong winds to develop with Flathead Lake. They're having MAC days right now, fishing tournament, and we've already been in contact with people up there. The east winds are really going to start ramping up after 4 p.m., 5 p.m. So we just don't want any boaters to be caught off guard by, it's kind of like a downslope wind coming off the Mission Mountains.
These strong winds made predicting snowfall patterns extremely difficult.
The snowfall is actually going to taper off overnight towards daybreak Friday morning, and temperatures are going to be quite cold in the teens and 20s, windy conditions as well. And with the wind comes the fact that some areas may not see that much snowfall. It's going to moderate pretty quickly by tomorrow afternoon. Temperatures getting back into the 30s and even 40s.
There is some hope this may be a last hurrah for winter. Noble says temperatures may warm up into the 50s, perhaps even the 60s by next week. We'll see. The Montana Shooting Sports Association has been offering the Be Safe program for children for over 20 years. According to MSSA President and spokesman Gary Marbut, he says the Be Safe message is simple.
The first thing they learn is don't touch. If you see a firearm, leave it alone and tell an adult. We know that a high percentage of Montana homes contain firearms, and kids play at other people's homes. So my message to parents is, you don't know what these other people may be doing for firearm security, so it's better that your child enter that environment with some gun safety education on board so they know how to respond correctly if they should encounter a firearm.
Marbut said the MSSA has distributed on the order of 100,000 copies of the Be Safe material around Montana for the last 20 years.
We're all about kids' safety. I'm a little frustrated in all this current national conversation about child safety and firearms that those people who want to sound like the great advocates for safety for children are not talking about firearm safety education. And so I'd like to steer the topic to something that's proven and something that works.
Marbut said the message and the program are approved by the Montana Legislature and by the Office of Public Instruction through the Superintendent of Public Instruction. Make Your Move, the Council of Local Victim Services and Prevention Agencies that includes Missoula City County Relationship Violence Services, will be unveiling new artwork for their Make Consent Explicit campaign during First Friday. That's this evening in downtown Missoula. Brenna Merrill has details about the explicit consent concept.
The tagline of these posters is that great sex begins how it ends, with a yes, yes, yes. And that really consent and the way we communicate about our sexual activity should be explicit. We should be clear about what we're asking and what we want to do when we're checking in with our partners.
Merrill outlines the overall goals of the campaign.
Our goal really with this campaign is to highlight the ways that open communication and affirmative consent will improve your sex life, right? Will make sex great, but also helps prevent sexual violence in our community.
The event is this evening from 5 until 8 p.m. at the Western Montana Community Center, which is on the second floor of the building just north of the Catalyst. Of course, that's in downtown Missoula. Our News Talk time now is 6:12.
Newstalk, KGVO.
Missoula's official weather station. Scattered snow showers expected early today by the afternoon. Mostly cloudy to cloudy skies with our temperatures right around the 40-degree mark. Tonight, mostly cloudy, lows just below freezing. I'm meteorologist Brooke Foster for Missoula's KECI 13 on NBC Montana.